Amanda, she did the video for you for the elderberry syrup when you visit us, and the marshmallow one, and she said, Mason, you should ask Tieraona about marshmallow because that was just a fun little video. And I was curious if you could talk about maybe a little bit about the history of marshmallow or some of the medicinal benefits and why you love Althaea officinalis.
I do love her. I grow a lot of her in my garden, as a matter of fact, because I have a huge box with probably 30 plants in it because I like to be able to rotate and take the roots, so that I can also use the roots. But marshmallow, Althaea, comes actually from altho, which means to cure. I mean, so think about its name. It meant basically to cure. It was widely used for respiratory and digestive issues historically. But not just medicinally. The small plants of marshmallow, when they're very small, the upper parts were taken and cooked and consumed like you would cook spinach or other sort of greens. They become too tough as they get older, but very, very tasty when they're young. And the marshmallow, because everybody's like, marshmallow? I'm like, yeah, well, actually, the Egyptians would take the marshmallow and they would cook it in honey. And then they would offer that, the roots they would cook with honey. And then they would offer that to, people that were maybe of higher status for colds and coughs and digestive problems. And it was used all throughout that time until a pharmacist in England actually got the idea to take these roots and with sugar and that make them into a confection that children would want to take for, again, respiratory and digestive problems. So that was kind of the segue to the old marshmallow, right? To what people think of today as the sugary confection that has no marshmallow in it. I will just say that marshmallow really, I served some just recently at a retreat that we had out at our ranch. And I had taken the fresh marshmallow leaf and I had infused it in just room temperature water, and I'd let it set for about 16 hours or so. And then I took it out, and while we were in the forest, I served it and I asked people a series of questions. Is it drying or moistening? Everybody was like, oh, it's very moistening. Yeah. It's moister than water. It's moister than moist. Then I said, does it feel hot or cooling? Oh, cooling. It feels very cooling. Does it have an odor? No smell. So then I'm getting them into saying, okay, so its medicinal effects are probably not due to like a peppermint with essential oils or volatile oils like menthol. Means that it's probably due to carbohydrate or polysaccharides because it's sweet, it's moistening, and it's not aromatic. So then we kept going. These were people who did not know anything about herbs. This was a women's retreat. And then eventually I told them it was marshmallow, and they were like, wow. And I said, so just through your tasting of this, you actually were able to learn a lot about this plant without ever knowing its name. People thought that was very cool. And they forget that our sensory, that our senses, we have co-evolved with plants since the beginning of our time on this planet. And we actually know them a lot better than we think they do. Everybody loved marshmallow. It is the best thing I know for just like, an acute heartburn. I love it for colds and coughs. It's great for gastritis. It's good for diarrhea. It's good to soothe a bladder infection, not really to treat it, but to soothe it. And one of the compounds that's in marshmallow, it's arabinogalactan. And arabinogalactan is also present in many of our immune herbs. And you have to remember that marshmallow really has this affinity for the digestive tract where 70% of all of your immune cells lie. And so marshmallow does have a beneficial effect on general immunity. So, wow, what safe for anybody. People say don't take it within 2 hours of a medication. I think that's a little overplayed. I really do, just by the way plants and drugs work. But it's really a safe herb for the very young, for the very old. You can take it during pregnancy. It's just a beautiful, beautiful herb. Malvaceae family. It's just gorgeous. Love it.
Yeah, it's definitely in my repertoire of like, say, nourishing herbal infusions. I'll throw that in maybe like once a week, make a cold infusion out of it.
And that's interesting because we both talked about a cold infusion. I set mine at room temperature. I just set it actually in the garden. I put it out in the garden.
Oh, nice.
Amidst all of my marshmallow plants. I stuck it in my jar and put it out there and let it sit overnight. And the reason for this, and your listeners probably know, but it's because it's so full in those mucopolysaccharides that if you subject it to high heat, you'll destroy much of its medicine. So it's best to do a cold infusion or a room temperature infusion for a longer period of time and then consume it.
Right. Yeah. Cold infusion almost makes it sound like I'm throwing ice cubes or something in there.
Usually
a room temperature.